A few months back, I did a video about the Roman Dodecahedron, and it was a pretty big hit. Actually, it's the last video I've made that was a hit. Have you checked on your favorite YouTubers lately? We're kind of struggling right now. Anyway, somewhere along the line, as we were preparing this video, somebody had the idea that, since we started doing merch drops this year, what if we sold a 3D printed dodecahedron? And then we could have you guys kind of help us to figure out what this thing was used for. Because I had this one made for the video, and I have to say, actually holding it in your hand, it gives you some ideas. So basically, what if we crowdsourced a solution to this thing? Well, we made the video, we launched the product, a lot of you guys bought it, and a lot of people sent in some ideas. And today I'm going to go through some of the ideas that these viewers submitted and see if we happen to solve the mystery through the power of the internet in shameless commerce. But here's the deal, I'm not an archaeologist, I'm just a guy on YouTube, so I called in an actual archaeologist who's also a guy on YouTube. So today I'm going to be joined by Stefan Milo, who, by the way, his name is actually pronounced Milo. I've been saying it wrong this whole time.
If you spend any amount of time really looking at archaeology topics online, you're gonna come across old Roman dodecahedrons sooner or later. And it's just one of those things, whenever you're looking into a topic and you think it's a very famous thing and there's something about it that not a lot of people know, or you didn't know, oh, there's something to that. It might make an interesting video. Maybe there's really something to these Roman dodecahedrons.
Everybody loves a mystery too.
Everyone loves a mystery. Yeah, everyone loves a mystery.
Yeah.
I think you saw my video. I think I'm team ritual. So
yeah, I am too for the most part.
Yeah, so I'm curious to see. I'm curious to be persuaded otherwise.
Yeah, but he sat down with me and we talked through some of these theories, and it was a lot of fun. And I just wanted to thank him up front for doing that. So stick around while we take a look at some of these theories and ideas around this thing, and by all means, tell us where we're wrong in the comments. Let's dodeca do this. So first things first, obviously, if you haven't seen the original video on this topic, I would recommend you go check that one out. It's got all the details on there. But regardless, I'll just do a quick recap of the facts that, any of these theories would need to satisfy in order to work. I'm going to set this down here. There's a new theory. It's an astronaut hat. The Roman dodecahedrons are these mysterious objects that have been found all over Northern Europe, and nobody seems to know what they are or what they were used for. They all have 12 sides, each side a 5-sided pentagon, and each side has holes in the middle of them. And the holes are different sizes. And at the corners where 3 sides meet, they have these little knobs. And some have been found with wax residue on them. Around 130 have been found, and there's no uniform size to these things. They've been small as a golf ball and as large as a grapefruit. And there's no markings on any of them that give away what they might be used for. Some of them have rings around the holes, but that's it. They're usually made out of copper or bronze, which is important because those are considered expensive metals back then. Geographically, they've almost all been found in Northern Europe, specifically Great Britain, France, Belgium, and Germany. This area was known as Gaul during the Roman days, so many prefer to call it the Gallic Roman dodecahedron. But it's so many syllables. Time-wise, they've all been dated to between the 1st and the 4th century CE. And the specific locations that they've been found include old Roman military encampments and public places like baths, and in a couple of graves, including a woman in Germany. So, with all that out of the way, let's take a look at some of the theories that the viewers sent in. I'll start with a group of submissions that were kind of like theories that already existed and that I talked about in the original video, but these submissions kind of help verify it or agree with it anyway. So there were a handful of ideas that had to do with around a knitting or a weaving device of some kind. So the first one here is Paul Brogger. He said, I've used my dodecahedron to easily weave a complex, seemingly useful 10-strand braid or plate. And yes, we were calling them dodecahedrons. So, and as you can see, he's got a nice little rope going there. You could buy something like that at REI. And Laura Ratner had something similar. She says, I think the purpose for it was for knitting with wool to make glove fingers like you can see below, which could be what the women were using it for, or it could have been with wire metal to make armor, which is what the soldiers were using it for. I want to give credit to a viewer named Loki, who also suggested weaving, but he didn't send a picture of it. And another viewer named Dean Jacobson suggested that maybe it started as a weaving kind of thing, but then it became just like a fad or a trend, so why not both? Okay, so for my personal take on these, on one hand, ropes were incredibly important in ancient times. They used ropes for all kinds of things. And this obviously has a way of taking, smaller strands and tying them into larger and stronger ropes. I'm not sold on this though, personally, because, the ability to make ropes existed for thousands of years and nowhere else has anything like this ever been found to use it. But let's see what Stefan had to say.
People have sent me different pictures of knitting tools, but the modern ones at least only have 2 holes in because you only need to thread it through one time. You don't need all the different sized holes.
Yeah.
And so I like this, certainly can do that, but why the different sized holes? Some of these holes are very small even. Like, this hole, for example,
right.
It's tiny. What is that being used for that purpose? That's what I always wonder with that. That's a pretty big finger, Is that being knitted for something else, I wonder? I don't know.
It's a condom machine.
It gets cold on Hadrian's Wall. Out of the practical ideas, maybe the one I like the most at the moment, but
yeah,
it's just, I just can't get over the fact that people knit gloves now, and they don't need a tool with lots of different sized holes to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so next we got a couple of theories that suggest it might be a holder of some kind, like, say, for a candle. For instance, Paul Matthews says it was a portable variable candlestick. Candles would have been a primary source of light, and they would have been, as they still are, non-standard and of variable size. He does point out that it has wax residue on a lot of these, but he also says that he's assuming that the holes were the same size on either side, and that is actually not true. And again, it totally could have been used like that, but again, I feel like there was much more simple solutions for that existed long before these things came along.
I think when we think of people with all these candles, we're imagining like the medieval period and the early modern period, and I wonder if the Romans relied more on oil lamps because they were so connected with the Mediterranean world in a way that like medieval England wasn't, right? So they had a huge industry of oil lamps, and we find oil lamps a lot. But I'm not saying the Romans never used candles, of course, but it's just too difficult. Because the holes are on both sides, you still need something underneath it, or the candle just falls through. Is what I found.
Well, I mean, I guess it would be sitting on a desk or something for just to play devil's advocate.
Yeah, but then I can't walk around with it. So it's like, this is how practical a candle holder is this.
We also had this submission from Carolyn Hare, who painted hers very beautifully. I love this. It's very Mardi Gras themed. But she says she also found that it makes a great holder for her vape pen, just like the Gauls did.
So if there's anything I know about the Gauls, it's that they hit the vape pens pretty hard, right?
Yeah.
So again, I think it could have, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we found out that someone did actually use it like this back in the day. I don't think it was the primary use, though. There were a few ideas that suggested it might have been a game of some kind. Dmitry Andropov suggested that it might have been a Roman Tupperware toy, which I did not know those were called Tupperware, but what do I know? I would say the only thing about this idea is that we haven't found any of the other pieces that would be needed for something like this.
There is a lot of ideas that this is some game device. That is a really popular idea, and I do see what is great about that is that it's the shape it is because that's the way the game is played. You don't have to think of like a necessarily practical reason for why it is the way it is. So that is, it could be connected to games or gambling in some way.
We also had a suggestion from Steven that said it's a gambling game, originally Celtic but adopted by Roman soldiers. You pick up various sized stones, the smallest of which would fit through every hole except for the smallest, and the largest would only fit through the largest hole. And then from there you could devise various games as simple as throw the stone through the hole to more complex ones involving betting stones, throwing the dodecahedron, and forfeiting stones, based on them passing through the upward facing hole. Basically, it's simply a lightweight gaming device you could take with you on the march and then pick up stones to play with wherever you camped for the night.
It could be, right, it could be a game, but I don't like the idea that they're throwing rocks at these things. A, because they're expensive.
Yeah, okay.
Relatively expensive. And B, they are quite lightweight. I think you're going to have to be a real crack shot if you can get a stone through one of these tiny holes. They had lots of games, for sure. And we found like a dodecahedron that's a dice. That's literally a dice with the markings of all the star signs on it. So they were playing games with, dodecahedron dice. What I get hung up on with the game aspect is that there's no markings, right? So that I feel like that limits how many games can be played. Let's say it landed on this hole. Like, what do you say? That landed on the fourth smallest hole?
I also had a suggestion from a viewer named Christopher Thu. He suggested that it might have been a trophy to award somebody for an accomplishment of some kind, which then in turn became a bit of a status symbol. Now, I will say I've always thought that it had some element of that, it being a status symbol or proof that you're a part of an elite group or something. So I'm not totally against that one. What is this move? Okay, so those were all theories that I kind of covered in the previous video. These were theories that already existed out there. Now let's talk about some theories that I'd never really heard before, which makes them more interesting, but I'm still not 100% sure about. Like, a couple of viewers suggested that it might have been a weapon of some kind. Like Eileen Carroll, who said, "My hypothesis is that it's a tool to tie cords around weights faster and cheaper as a profitable military weapon business. Perhaps it was a skill typically performed by women, and those who could afford it to have the tool made were able to produce the weapons faster and more profitably, so they were able to accumulate more wealth than people making the weapons without the tool." She says, "Primarily, I suggest the tool was used to make a Celtic slammer. I suggest the dodecahedron would have been used to start the knot, and then use the tool to hold a roundish rock in the center of the cording with the loops held in place, evenly spaced around the rock." Now, I don't know enough about ancient weapons to say whether anything like that was ever used as a weapon, but let's see what the expert Stefan had to say about it.
I'm just thinking, like, in terms of time saved having this thing, how much time did you spend making the dodecahedron to save the time making this thing? And if you have the money to have this dodecahedron, you probably got the money for a sword, I think.
Oh, okay.
Like this, to me, this Celtic slammer thing, this seems to me like a real peasant's weapon. That all they have is a rock and string.
Oh, I got you. Yeah.
But they're going to go to battle. Whereas someone with the money to produce like quite specific bronze artifacts might just stab you. It's like they've got this perfect material for a weapon, and they've used it to turn something less good into a weapon.
True.
People certainly did fight with slings and stuff, which really is like truly a shepherd's tool, a peasant tool, but that's what they had. So just a string and some rocks. Okay, we're going to war. I don't know about the Celtic slammer one. I don't know. It feels like you're taking a very expensive thing to make a very cheap thing, is what I would say.
Okay. Fair point.
Another suggestion by a viewer who went by Matthias' last name. I don't think that's his actual last name, but he suggested it might have been used to like measure rope or string, both in the thickness because of the different holes, but also the length because of the distance between the two pegs. Possibly. My problem with that is, again, any kind of measurement that this thing is used for it's kind of off the table for me, because like it's not marked in any kind of way. And they're also all different sizes. It would probably need to be standardized if it was used as a measurement device. So this next one is pretty interesting. It's from Rick Santa Coloma, and he suggested it's a stand for oil lamps. He even made a video about it.
It fits. You could fit different ones in, different sizes. This one just sits on top, which makes a very stable support for this. You can pick a hole to set it in that works best for you, that makes it the most stable.
He said, "I believe these could simply be oil lamp stands made to support the ubiquitous terracotta olive oil lamps used throughout Europe during the time these existed. It would serve well as an oil lamp stand. It raises the lamp above your table surface, casting the light over a broader area and insulating your table surface from the heat of the lamp. And for the varied holes, I feel could have been used for an alternative type floating wick lamps, which were also used at the time." And I do think this one's pretty interesting. He's clearly put a lot of thought into this. He's got this whole video that he made about it. I'll link it down below. And on this one, again, maybe. I mean, it definitely could work for something like that. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if somebody used it like that at some point by somebody, but I don't know.
Maybe. I will say, why would this be the only thing that's preserved with them? You know, why not the other parts of the oil lamp out of 140 found? But maybe some are found with oil lamps, but oil lamps are so common in Roman excavations that the two, like, they're not being put together. Two and two aren't being put together. But then also thinking about it, but why only Gaul and Britain if this is to hold oil lamps? They use oil lamps everywhere. In my mind, the sort of center of the Roman world is the Mediterranean, right? And when I imagine the Roman elites of Gaul and Britain, a lot of them are educated in Rome, and I imagine culture moves sort of outwards from Rome. I wonder how many trends sort of originated in provinces of the empire and just stayed in provinces of the empire.
Right. Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting thing to wonder about, because they would all go to school in Rome. Everyone would go to Rome. And if this was like a big trend, big fad, why not Rome?
A viewer named Jeff Conti had the idea that it might have been a cult signifier. He says, my theory is that the dodecahedrons were associated with a mystery cult located in Roman Gaul. The objects might have represented attainment of a certain level of initiation and could have served as a way for those initiates to recognize one another. Each face of the object could represent one of the signs of the zodiac, astrology being relatively unknown to the broader Gallo-Roman populace at that time, and it would have been seen as an arcane divine knowledge. The secrecy surrounding the mystery cult rituals would explain why there's no written records about these objects. This also explains why the objects were important enough to be buried with people. So yeah, kind of similar to that trophy idea earlier, but just kind of dropping all the pretense and making it just a status symbol for a certain cult. And again, I've always thought that there was some element of this to the dodecahedron, like it's proof that you're a part of a certain elite group. There were definitely plenty of cults back in those days. And I think this was Stefan's favorite idea.
I like this one, Jeff Conte.
I thought you might.
I like this one a lot. This is basically what I think, yeah. Because we don't commonly come into contact with religions where there's this idea of secret knowledge. There is this element of secret knowledge in a lot of Roman religion. And that is a great explanation of why this relatively common, relatively expensive item was never written down as far as we're aware of. I tend to agree with Jeff. I think this is more along the lines of what this object is, something cult related, because they had so many different like religious cults. There wasn't like a uniform Roman religion. They had a lot of different ways of doing things, and they would really easily adopt religious ideas from different communities around the empire. There's a lot of cultural exchange, I think. Yeah, so I'm inclined to agree with Jeff, to be honest.
Okay.
So before I get to the submission that I personally picked as the winner, there's a few miscellaneous ones that I thought I would throw out there. A viewer named Kevin Spooner suggested it might have been a massage ball because, the plebes were not allowed to touch the elites. Tevan Toysant suggested it might have been a corkscrew puller. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but okay. And I did have a viewer reach out named Maria Anthony who put this in a book. She shared that she's written a book series that features a dodecahedron as a major plot device. It's called Antir Galosek, The Mighty Land. I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's on Amazon if anybody wants to go check it out. All right, so last but not least, I give you the winner. Confetti? Yeah, confetti? Okay. For me anyway. Of this contest, this one is the winner. I chose this one because I hadn't heard this idea before, and it pointed to a clue that was kind of right in front of my face and I'd never really considered, and it just kind of checked all the boxes for me, more so than the others. This came from Eric Taxier, I think I'm saying his name right. He called it a post-Rome Celtic status symbol calendar. He says, the dodecahedron has 12 faces with 5 sides, and the whole shape adds up to 30 edges. The shape itself was tied to the harmony of the cosmos and numerically linked to the Julian calendar and major gods, all stuff associated with astronomy or astrology, which was extremely important in Roman society. Now consider the Celtic Caligny calendar system. It's a lunar-solar calendar, integrating solar and lunar, with 12 lunar months and an extra month added every 30 months, or 2.5 years. To track the solar year, adding up to 5-year cycles. But my vague intuition is that while the folk calendar in Celtic regions relied on memory, an appropriately shaped dodecahedron could easily be used as a statusy reminder of this calendar for the wealthier members of a rapidly changing Celtic society in contact with Rome. Okay, I like this idea. It honestly, call me dense, but it never really occurred to me that the 12 sides could correspond to a 12-month calendar, and I didn't even realize that it had 30 edges on it that could correspond roughly to 30 days of each month or the lunar cycle. But it's the bit about it being a tie to their Celtic or pagan religion that was probably phased out under Roman occupation. That was super interesting to me. Like, I always thought it was a status symbol or some kind, or maybe had a spiritual significance. And this has, some of that in there. And also, it was like a way to sort of surreptitiously keep their religion alive. It explains why nothing was ever written about it, and it explains why it appears, in this one specific time and place in history. Now, does that mean that this is absolutely the answer? Of course not. I have no idea. But this made me think about, the things that the people who owned this back in that time would have been experiencing culturally in a way that none of these others did. And that's why I named it the winner. Stefan did not agree.
The only thing I'll say, why no markings? For this one, I'm tracking time, I'm tracking months, and there's no markings on it. That seems odd. Unless it is really just like literally a pure symbol, just some representation of like the universe, time, harmony. Right. They did already have an idea about the dodecahedron being the shape of the universe. The zodiac also has like 12 signs. Like they're kind of into this shape, and yeah, I think it's just some obscure religious cult that has basically died out. We don't know anything about really, because it's kind of secret knowledge, stuff like that.
The Freemasons of their time.
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Yeah, the fact that there's no markings is really another annoying thing. We need one in Rome with markings on. It could do any of the tasks that have been suggested today. But I feel like the fact that it could do any of them suggests that I think we don't yet have a clear idea of what it was for. If it was for a practical thing, I think we haven't nailed that yet. The fact that there's no markings on it makes me wonder what purpose it could have had outside of a symbol. For example, a Christian cross is a very symbolic thing, right? But 90% of them are extremely simple, just two pieces of wood. And just because it is and don't have markings on, but it is a very symbolic thing. So that's maybe what I think of it as. This is some sort of representation of Platonic solids, the universe, but for whatever reason, maybe this was part of a secret cult, secret religion, secret rituals. There's just no record of it and no markings of it. That's probably where I would land if I had to guess. I think we'd have to have some writing at this point. I think we've got to, we do find every now and again letters from Hadrian's Wall that were preserved. And we found dodecahedrons in Hadrian's Wall, I suppose. So at some point, hopefully, somewhere, someone wrote a letter to their mum whilst they were away with the army. Like, hey, mum, look what I found in Britain. This is what they do with it. Isn't that crazy?
So my favorite was the calendar idea. Stefan's was the secret cult item. Who do you agree with? Which of these ideas do you think is most likely? Please sound off below. Real quick, I want to thank everybody who sent in their ideas. It was a lot of fun looking through all these, and just also thanks to everybody who bought one of these things. I hope you're enjoying it. And a big, huge thanks to Stefan for coming out to play. This was actually the first time we'd ever met and talked, and I hope we can do it again. It was a lot of fun. If you're not following Stefan's channel and you're a fan of archaeology, absolutely go follow him. I asked him to join me because I'm a fan of his videos. He does great work on fascinating topics, so I'll link his channel down below. And for anybody who didn't get one of these dodecahedrons, just a little quick tease. It might be making a reappearance on Black Friday. Just don't tell anybody. So to wrap all this up, I'll just say we probably haven't solved this thing, and we're probably way overthinking it. It literally might just be a desk toy. Humans are just random sometimes. But I do love a good archaeological mystery, so if there's one I haven't covered, please share it down below. Actually, I've got an idea for this that I haven't seen anybody else try. Let me see. Let me see if it'll work. Razor holder. As you can see, it keeps the blade off the counter to prevent damage to the razor, and these little nubs help you carry the razor around without touching it. It's the perfect solution. And if there's anything I know about the Gauls, it's that they maintain some serious mustache game. So they were definitely shaving with something, but it was probably a straight razor and not a, technologically precise work of art like today's sponsor, Henson Shaving. Look, if you're a mammal and you have places on your body that you don't want hair, chances are you shaved. And chances are you use some kind of cartridge razor with a whole bunch of blades like these right here. And you probably thought that was a good thing. I mean, more blades better, right? But actually, no, they're not. Not if they're flimsy, unsupported blades like these that bounce all over the surface of your skin and cause irritation. Not to mention just dulling the blades faster. Turns out, if you know what you're doing, one blade is enough. One blade is actually better. What do I mean by knowing what you're doing? Well, for starters, you would want to hold the blade at a perfect 30-degree angle for maximum smoothness. That's better. You'd want to support the blade all the way across to keep it from skipping all over the place and irritating your skin. That's better. And you'd want it to be designed so precisely that the blade only sticks out 0.0013 inches, less than 30 microns, less than the thickness of a human hair. That's crazy engineering for a razor. But all that crazy engineering makes it so that you can get an even better shave using blades that only cost 10 cents each, as opposed to the $2 to $4 these cartridge razors cost. And the proof of this, by the way, is in the research. They actually worked with a medical imaging company to take pictures of people after they used a cartridge razor and a Henson razor, and the Henson one clearly shows that the blood is rushing to the surface of the skin a lot less, meaning less irritation. I've been using Henson for a couple of years now. I can totally vouch for it, and if you want to give it a try, just for watching this video, you can get a pack of 100 blades for free when you buy a razor. Just make sure and add it to your shopping cart when you check out and enter Shaving with Joe in the offer code. By the way, you're automatically saving money right out the bat when you do, because these cartridge blades, if you bought 100 of these, that would cost like $200 to $400 over time. This, you won't spend another dime on shaving for the next couple of years. And did I mention it's a better shave? Just give it a try at hensonshaving.com. The link's down in the description, or scan the QR code on the screen. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. If this is your first time here, maybe check out a video that will link up here, or just look at any of them on your sidebar if you're on your computer. Have my face and my name on it. Just take a look, and if you enjoy them, I invite you to subscribe. I come back with videos as often as I can. I think I'll wrap it up with that. So thank you guys so much for watching. Do go out there, have an eye-opening rest of the week. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Love you guys. Take care.